In the autumn of 2024, a woman in Fairfield, Connecticut, named Jacqueline Crenshaw, began sending money to a man she had met on a dating app. A widower, he said, with 2 children, who traded cryptocurrency on the side and wanted to show her how. The platform he introduced her to looked real. A dashboard, a portfolio, returns that climbed steadily month after month. Over the course of several months, watching those numbers grow, she transferred $980,000 into an account she believed she controlled. The man did not exist. The platform did not exist. The worker who had played the role of the widower, who had called her in the evenings, who had kept the conversation going across weeks, was sitting in a guarded compound in Southeast Asia, running the same script on dozens of people simultaneously, under threat of punishment if his numbers fell short. When Crenshaw tried to withdraw her money, she was told she owed taxes, then fees, then a minimum balance she hadn't known about. Then the account went dark and no one answered. She never recovered a dollar of it. What she couldn't have known, what almost no one knew at the time, was where it had gone. Huione Group was founded in Cambodia in 2014, originally as a luxury services company offering helicopter leasing and hotel reservations. It expanded steadily across the following decade: insurance, real estate, and airline stake. And by the early 2020s, its payments arm, Huione Pay, had become genuinely embedded in Cambodia's daily commercial life. Its QR codes appeared on the walls of restaurants, corner shops, and hotel lobbies across Phnom Penh. The company called itself Cambodia's Alipay. It claimed over 500,000 registered users. From the outside, Huione looked like a company that had understood Cambodia early and grown with it. The lobby of its Phnom Penh headquarters could have belonged to any mid-sized regional bank. Signs on the walls reminded visitors that firearms were not permitted inside. The company's corporate structure told a more complicated story. It had at least 11 subsidiaries spread across Cambodia, Singapore, and Poland, 2 insurance companies, 2 cryptocurrency platforms, and a home automation division distributing surveillance equipment from a Chinese manufacturer that the US government had placed on its entity list. Less visibly, it also operated a shooting range under the name Huione Military Club, complete with its own Facebook page. None of this was concealed. Most of it was in public corporate filings. The structure of the company was documented, registered, and operating in daylight. That, as it turned out, was precisely the point. When blockchain analysts at the London-based firm Elliptic began tracing the cryptocurrency flows connected to Huione's payment infrastructure, they found something the corporate filings did not mention. Between 2014 and 2025, Huione Group's accounts had received at least $98 billion in cryptocurrency. The US Treasury, using a narrower window and focusing only on verified illicit proceeds, documented at least $4 billion laundered between August 2021 and January 2025. 47 countries, thousands of victims, 1 laundromat. To understand how Huione processed that money, you need to understand what the company was actually selling and where it was selling it. Huione Guarantee was not on the dark web. It did not require special software or an invitation. It operated on Telegram, a messaging application used by over 1 billion people worldwide, through a network of Chinese-language channels and chat groups that you needed to know how to find. Once you did, the listings read like the back pages of an e-commerce platform that had been built without terms of service and with no expectation of law enforcement. Money laundering services came first. Vendors explicitly advertised their ability to accept scam proceeds from victims anywhere in the world, move funds across borders through chains of intermediary wallets, convert them into clean currency or Chinese payment app balances, and deliver the proceeds minus a commission. The listings described transaction volumes, processing times, and fee schedules. They were written with the confidence of people who had been doing this for years without consequence, which, for the most part, they had. Alongside those were catalogs of stolen personal data, passport scans, bank credentials, social security numbers, the raw material a scammer needs to open accounts, build fake identities, and make international wire transfers look legitimate. There were deepfake generation tools, software that could produce convincing video of a face saying something it had never said, used to impersonate bank representatives or government officials when victims began asking questions. And there were full-service web studios that would build a fake cryptocurrency investment platform on commission, custom branding, a trading dashboard showing fabricated returns, fake company registration documents. These are the platforms that people like Jacqueline Crenshaw deposited their savings into. And then, at the end of the catalog, documented by Elliptic and cited in the formal FinCEN filing, physical restraint equipment, electrified shackles, listed openly, intended, according to the U.S. government's own language, for use on the people being held inside the compounds where this entire industry was staffed. By January 2025, Elliptic's researchers had concluded that Huione Guarantee had processed at least $24 billion in transactions, a floor, not a ceiling, since independent estimates by other firms ran considerably higher. In the final quarter of 2024 alone, the marketplace had taken in more than $4 billion. To put that in context, Hydra, the largest dark web market ever recorded, received approximately $5.2 billion across its entire 6-year lifespan. Huione had not simply surpassed every illicit online marketplace in history, it had lapped them. When Elliptic published its first findings in July 2024, Huione issued a statement describing itself as a guarantee trading platform, bearing no responsibility for what others chose to sell on it. The company then renamed the subsidiary Huione Guarantee and removed all references to the parent company from the product's website. The listings did not change. Huione Group had 3 categories of client, and understanding each of them separately is the only way to understand the full scale of what the company enabled. The first category, state-sponsored hackers, North Korea's Lazarus Group, the hacking unit behind the Bybit theft, the Ronin Bridge attack, and more than $1 billion in cryptocurrency stolen across multiple operations used Huione Pay to move money. Analysis by cybersecurity firm Recorded Future traced over $150,000 flowing from a confirmed Lazarus Group wallet to a Huione Pay address between June 2023 and February 2024. In July 2024, Tether froze that Huione-linked account after identifying the connection to North Korean proceeds. The U.S. Treasury's formal designation documented at least $37 million in verified DPRK-linked funds processed through Huione's infrastructure. FinCEN stated directly that those funds were being used to finance North Korea's ballistic missile program. The second category, pig butchering syndicates. The name comes from an analogy the people running these operations use internally. You fatten the pig before you slaughter it. A scammer builds a relationship, sometimes over weeks, sometimes over months, before introducing the investment opportunity. The victim deposits money. The platform shows gains. The victim deposits more. Then the account goes dark. In 2024 alone, Americans lost over $10 billion to Southeast Asia-based scam operations, a 66% increase over the year before, according to the U.S. Treasury. Globally, the U.S. Institute of Peace estimated that pig butchering schemes generated nearly $64 billion in revenue in 2023. The scam compound economies of Cambodia, Myanmar, and Laos together generated revenues equivalent to roughly 40% of those 3 countries' combined official GDP. Jacqueline Crenshaw's $980,000 was part of that 40%. The third category is the hardest to describe, because the people in it were not criminals. They were victims, the workers inside the scam compounds, the people who had called Crenshaw in the evenings, who had kept the conversation going across weeks, were, in most cases, not there by choice. The United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights estimated that by 2023, approximately 220,000 people were being held in scam centers in Cambodia and Myanmar alone. The majority of them recruited through job advertisements on Facebook and LinkedIn, online marketing roles, customer service positions, data entry jobs that were supposed to be in Thailand or Malaysia. When they arrived, their documents were taken. Inside the Prince Group's compounds in Cambodia, the U.S. Treasury documented what it called barbaric methods of control. Workers who failed to meet daily scam quotas were beaten, denied food, or sold between compounds. Some were subjected to electric shocks. The electrified shackles available for purchase on Huione Guarantee were not a theoretical product. They were supply chain infrastructure. These workers were not Huione Group's employees. But without Huione's marketplace providing the tools, without Huione's payment rails moving the money, and without Huione's laundering services converting the proceeds into something clean enough to spend, none of this industry operates at the scale it reached. In May 2025, The U.S. Treasury formally identified Huione Group as a primary money laundering concern under Section 311 of the USA Patriot Act. Buried inside that designation, in the section describing the company's ownership structure, was a name that explained a great deal about how the enterprise had operated in open daylight for as long as it had. One of Huione Pei's 3 directors was Hun To, a cousin of Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet. Hun To's father was the brother of Hun Sen, the man who ruled Cambodia for 38 years before stepping down in 2023 and installing his son in his place. The Hun family's relationship to Cambodian political power is not simply that of a ruling dynasty. It is the connective tissue of the country's entire economic architecture, the system through which protection is granted or withheld, the reason certain buildings stay open and certain investigations stop where they do. Hun To has denied involvement in any criminal activity and has pursued defamation proceedings in Australian courts against media outlets that reported the allegations. Huione Pei confirmed his directorship, but stated that it did not include day-to-day operational responsibility. The documented record tells its own story. Australia's Crime Commission investigated Hun To in connection with Operation Ilopango, an inquiry into heroin shipments from Cambodia concealed in timber bound for Australian ports. In 2003, Australian police sought his arrest. 2 decades later, in March 2023, an Australian Member of Parliament argued before the House of Representatives that Hun To should never again be granted an Australian visa, citing alleged involvement in drug trafficking, illegal gambling, animal trafficking, and human trafficking. Thailand's cybercrime police publicly stated they had traced financial flows from scam networks to Huione Group and were examining a possible connection to a member of the Hun family. Chen Zhi, the chairman of Prince Group, the conglomerate whose compounds provided the labor that generated the money that moved through Huione, occupied a different position in the same architecture. He had been a personal advisor to both Hun Sen and Hun Manet. A 2017 royal decree named him specifically as an advisor to Cambodia's Ministry of Interior. He had donated upwards of $18 million to the Cambodian government. He held Cambodia's highest honorific title, Nik Okna. Multiple countries, including the United States, had sanctioned his businesses and indicted him in federal court before Cambodia moved against him. When the National Bank of Cambodia finally revoked Huione Pei's banking license in March 2025, a transnational crime researcher offered a 1-sentence assessment. It amounted, he said, to a brand switch, something the government could point to without changing anything that mattered. What it would take for something to actually change was still not clear. What eventually brought the pressure to a point where Cambodia could no longer absorb it was not a single government investigation. It was a public record that kept compounding. Elliptic, the blockchain analytics firm based in London, had been tracking Huione Guarantee's transaction patterns for months before publishing its first public findings in July 2024. The report identified the marketplace, calculated its transaction volumes, named its connection to Huione Group, and noted that one of Huione Pei's directors was a member of Cambodia's ruling family. Wired and the New York Times followed with their own investigations. What investigators found was a company whose public-facing legitimacy, the QR codes, the insurance policies, the helicopter leasing history, had been built around one of the most sophisticated illicit financial networks ever documented. By May 2025, the U.S. Treasury had seen enough. FinCEN invoked Section 311 of the USA Patriot Act, a provision reserved for institutions that pose a systemic threat to the integrity of the global financial system, and prohibited American banks from opening or maintaining any account for Huione Group entities. The Treasury Secretary described Huione as the marketplace of choice for malicious cyber actors. In October 2025, in a coordinated action with the United Kingdom, the U.S. imposed sanctions on 146 individuals and entities connected to the Prince Group network. The Department of Justice unsealed an indictment against Chen Zhi. Federal prosecutors announced the largest cryptocurrency forfeiture in history, 127,271 Bitcoin, worth approximately $15 billion. Then, on May 13, 2025, Telegram moved. It forced both Huione Guarantee and a second marketplace called Xinbi Guarantee offline on the same day. Together, the two platforms had processed over $35 billion. Huione Guarantee had already renamed itself Huione Guarantee, built backup channels, and prepared for exactly this contingency. Within hours of the ban, It was directing its user base, which had grown to over 900,000 people, to a successor marketplace called To-Do Guarantee, in which Huione held a 30% stake. The marketplace was not destroyed. It was rerouted. Cambodia, finally, and under what multiple governments made clear was enormous diplomatic pressure, moved against the leadership. On January 6, 2026, Chen Zhi was arrested in Phnom Penh. His Cambodian citizenship was revoked by royal decree. He was extradited to China the following day. Chinese state television broadcast footage of him arriving in Beijing, hooded, handcuffed, escorted off a plane by officers from China's Ministry of Public Security. He faces charges including wire fraud, money laundering, and operating illegal casinos. 85 days later, on April 1, 2026, the same footage played again. This time it was Xiong, 41 years old, former chairman of Huione Group, shaven-headed and handcuffed, stepping off a China Southern Airlines flight into the custody of Chinese police. Chinese state media described him as a core backbone member of the Chen Zhi criminal enterprise. He faces charges of large-scale fraud, money laundering, operation of illegal casinos, and concealment of criminal proceeds. The legal mechanism that enabled both extraditions was the revocation of Cambodian citizenship, the naturalized status that had previously shielded both men from transfer to Chinese jurisdiction. On March 30, 2026, 10 days before Xiong's extradition, Cambodia's National Assembly unanimously passed the country's first law specifically targeting online scam operations. All 112 members present voted in favor. The legislation imposes up to life imprisonment for ringleaders whose operations result in a worker's death. It awaits final royal approval. Cambodia had previously had no dedicated anti-scam legislation at all. By April 2026, authorities had set a deadline to shut down all scam centers in the country by the end of the month. The government reported having targeted 250 locations since July, closing roughly 80% of them. 210,000 foreign nationals had voluntarily left. 30,000 more had been deported. Jacqueline Crenshaw did not get her money back. She is one of tens of thousands of documented victims in the United States alone. The FBI's Internet Crime Complaints Center logged over $16 billion in fraud losses in 2024, a figure that understates the actual toll. Because most victims never file a report. They are too embarrassed, or they don't know it qualifies as a crime, or they simply can't face saying the number out loud. Xiong is in Chinese custody. Chen Zhi is in Chinese custody. Huione Pay has had its license revoked. The marketplace has been deplatformed. The U.S. Treasury has cut off the entire corporate structure from the American financial system. Cambodia has passed its first anti-scam law. On paper, these are significant results. And yet the USDH stablecoin, the one Huione built specifically because it, in the company's own phrasing, avoids the common freezing and transfer restrictions of traditional digital currencies, is still in circulation. The ChatMe messaging app is still available for download on the Apple App Store and Google Play. Huione holds a 30% stake in To-Do Guarantee, the successor marketplace that absorbed much of Huione's vendor network after the Telegram ban. At least 30 new illicit marketplaces emerged to fill the remaining gap. The vendor networks have continued operating under different names, on different platforms, in different jurisdictions. Jacob Sims, a visiting fellow at Harvard University's Asia Center and one of the leading independent researchers on Southeast Asian transnational crime, offered his assessment when asked about the crackdown. Past enforcement in Cambodia, he said, had often left the financial and protection networks intact, allowing operations to quickly reconstitute. So far, he said, there were few signs the current round was reaching the key perpetrators among the Cambodian ruling elite. And, he added, continued restrictions on independent reporting and civil society actors made the government's own claims difficult to verify. What has changed is the cost of doing business at this scale while attached to a named political family in a country with international relationships it needs to protect. That cost has gone up significantly. Whether it has gone up enough, whether the architecture behind the operation is actually being dismantled, or whether the buildings are simply being repainted, is a question that does not have an answer yet. And the workers who ran the compounds, the people who called in the evenings, who remembered what you told them, who were doing it under threat of punishment, many of them are simply in different compounds now. They were just repainting. That's what the company said when reporters called.